your dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you
Good morning, Muskegon. This is Eye on Muskegon, and I'm Jim Riley here in Muskegon's Clear Channel Studios with my friend and engineer, the legendary Oscar Osbo. And as always, we welcome all of you in radio, computer, smartphone, and podcast land to Eye on Muskegon. We are Muskegon County's #1 rated political talk radio show, and hey, if you're listening now, you know the people have spoken. We got an extra half hour. We are now starting at 8:30-ish, and that confirms our #1 ratings.
8:30-ish, yeah.
So here we go. And again, as always, too, we are the show that does want to put you on the radio. So give us a call right now. Get that phone out and dial. Our number is 231-830-3109. And I remind all of you that our show is important for lots of reasons, but one, of course, is that most folks do pay more in local taxes and utilities and things of that sort than they do, in fact, pay in federal taxes. So it really does, what happens locally here does impact your bottom line. It impacts your wallet, your family's ability to spend and save far more than what goes on in Washington. So hopefully you will understand that, and we'll all be learning as time goes on. But give us a call if you've got some comments on any of the things that we are talking about. Now, the promos that we've done on the radio this week, and last week I promised that we would continue our conversation about race in Muskegon, a hot topic by many. Politicians tend to run away from that, and we will try to continue that conversation. But before we get into that, I do want to, now that we have the extra half hour, I wanted to extend our little hot topics segment and talk about some of the things that may have happened last week in the county and some of the things that are maybe happening as we speak. And just a little an update. I had mentioned something that I thought was really, really good for the citizens of Muskegon County, or actually the state of Michigan, but in particular Muskegon County, is that Governor Rick Snyder last week signed legislation that required school board elections to be held in even number Novembers starting next year in 2012. And that, of course, then allows the people, the citizens who pay the taxes, who have the children, who deserve to be educated, and then they will have the opportunity to vote in the big elections rather than they squeezing these votes off in the end of March and the middle of the winter kind of things. Yeah. But what I didn't realize, and some folks had emailed me to my the Eye of Muskegon email address, which, by the way, I'll just highlight here, which is EyeOnMuskegon@gmail.com. But they updated me in that while the school board elections are on the even year Novembers, the millage elections can still be snuck into the dark of winter when folks are not watching and don't realize that there's anything going on. So these various millages, the ways that the local municipalities and the school systems have been able to sneak in pay raises, and I think if you look at the way some of the spending has been done, and some of the votes where you have far fewer than 10% of the registered voters, in some cases below 5% of the registered voters actually even aware that there's an election, that scam continues as we speak. So when you talk with your elected officials, when you talk with your state reps and senators, you might mention that there's another scam going on, and while it's nice to see one good step from the governor, let's have a few more to follow that. As we had mentioned also last week, Norton Shores residents were going to see their sewer bills increase, and the Norton Shores City Council did vote to increase those rates. They had to do it. I have no problem with city councils or county commissions or whatnot actually passing on the costs of government, costs of doing things to the citizens, because then the citizens understand what it really costs, rather than what's been going on with let's say, Muskegon County, where they are making promises that are truly unfunded. So in other words, you think that everything is fine until you see this enormous bill down the road. One other thing coming up, Oscar, you know about this, that I am retired, but I am under 65, so I don't have any health care, or at least I don't have any free health care, so I went out, and in my case, I went to Blue Cross, Blue Shield, Michigan
Wow.
Blue Cross, and I bought my own insurance.
Went to the big boys too, eh?
Yeah, well, that's, I pay my monthly each month, and I have a fairly large, in my case, I believe it's $2,500 deductible. So it's important for me to shop when I go when I need health care, and I typically will have an annual physical and blood work and things of that sort. And while I do think that our local hospitals do a really great job in terms of doing the blood work, and the phlebotomist, it's truly almost painless. But they have to charge. In particular, they have to charge for all the folks that come in and don't pay. So I looked for alternatives to reduce my cost. And Mercy Hospital Group has...
I'm sorry, I have this picture in my head of you doing it in the bathroom with a syringe. But anyway,
well, is that an option? Maybe I'll do that. Never thought about that. Probably not. But that's a very sad thought. Okay, let's move on here. But Mercy Hospital has once a month, and they've been doing this for years, and I believe they still are. I didn't double check this morning. You can give them a call, but they have cholesterol, lipid, and glucose screenings on the second Tuesday of every month, and that would be coming up this Tuesday, 7 to noon. And I did have it. I believe it's at the Heart Center, which is on Sherman.
Right.
But you can give them a call. The prices are ridiculous. $6 for cholesterol or glucose screening. And of course, you and I were just talking about kidney situations.
Right.
$15 for a lipid profile, or $21 for both. So if, in fact, you are paying your own, and you are shopping, which is what you would do for a can of soup, and you would do for a lawnmower, and you would do for everything except for health care
right.
in many cases. But those of us who do shop, this is a wonderful way to save a little money.
Right.
Okay, there's a big event that happened this week, and I it just gets my bunions in a bunch. The Muskegon County commissioners voted for the final 3 of their union contracts. They have 10 unions. 7 were approved a few months back, and the final 3 were just approved. And I will just read this headline. This has nothing to do with the county, but teachers in Portage Public Schools have agreed to a 4% cut in the base salary schedule and to paying 30% of their health insurance premiums under a new contract. Now, that's not an unusual headline. What we're seeing is, I know Oak Ridge and many school systems, certainly many municipalities throughout the state, and certainly the state with its own employees, are saying, folks, you have to start paying your fair share.
Right.
So the big term, paying your fair share is real big on, unless it includes, sadly, union members. And I would just say that these 3 contracts. It's hard for me to comment specifically on the contracts, because even though the union members who must operate under those contracts, they were able to read the contracts. But the taxpayers who must pay for those contracts, we're not allowed to see the contracts. We weren't allowed to see them before the vote. They're still not posted. The ones that were approved a few months ago, the first 7, they're still not posted. So there's the special rules for union employees that are fully approved by our at least 10 of the 11 county commissioners, and there are special rules for us taxpayers, which really we get the back seat. But the Chronicle had a little article by Eric Gartner. This was the past week, and it talked about the county's 509 union employees are also subject to these same contracts. So this essentially covers every single employee in the county, or who works for the county of Muskegon, whether they be in a union or not. And County Administrator Bonnie Hammersley is quoted as saying that some of the shifts that they have made in insurance will save about $1.2 million being paid by the employees instead of the county for the next year. I would. It's without having the specific information, it's hard for me to say, but right off the top of my head, I would say bullpocky on that. What's happened is that there was announced that there was going to be an approximate $1 million in savings when they made a shift from one ridiculously overpriced insurance company to another one, and I applaud the county for doing that, even though it took years for them to finally make that kind of move. And there were some minor, and I mean minor, increases in co-pays and deductibles that county employees would be involved in. But to suggest that they saved $1.2 million, I would like to see the facts before anything happens there. But with that $1.2 million, put at the bottom of the article and at the bottom of the contract, I would imagine, was $600 raise for everyone across the board of every full-time employee. Well, they've got about 1,000 full-time employees. There's $600,000 out of nowhere. That doesn't include most of the county employees get an annual step-up in pay. In other words, you're an 11-year worker.
Right.
Now you're a 12-year worker. It doesn't include the cost of living increases that they get. It doesn't include, let's say your health care cost $14,000 one year and it costs $14,500 the next. Well, that's a raise, right? I mean, whether you pay it or not, your employer has to pay it. So they've given them an extra $600. And I'm going to get to another point here because now they're trying to get away from the governor's 80-20 rule, but.
So they're basically saving money, but then they're increasing the money for everything else around there.
Exactlamundo, baby.
Yeah.
Yes. And again, it's hard for me to talk specifics because I've not been privy to, even though I've asked to see the contracts. But I did attend the county commission meeting on Thursday when they made these votes, and I did prepare a statement which I read, and I will read it, just parts of it here. Quote, this is what I read to the county commissioner. So I would ask before you vote to inform us taxpayers and residents of Muskegon County and to answer some simple questions that I'm sure you have already asked yourself. How many paid days off from work, including holidays, sick days, vacation days, personal days, birthdays, and any other paid leave from the work of the county will these new contracts grant? We know that previous contracts have granted as much as 60 or more. It's a little hard to determine, but at least 60 paid days off, which is 3 months, folks.
Right.
So how do these new contracts address that particular issue? Number two, how do the new contracts differ from the current contract in this respect? In other words, how many days are you currently going to have? How does it differ from before? Did we give more paid days off, or do we have less? These are not unreasonable questions, I don't think. I continued on. The retirement and health care benefits, including vision and dental, for county employees and retirees have been described as Cadillac plans and are definitely far more lavish than those of private employers and local municipalities in our county, which is most certainly true. At least they've been described that way by others. And they most certainly are far more lavish than what you're going to see, let's say, in Fruitport Township, or you're going to see at Howmet, or any other, or most every other operation in the county. They more resemble the union agreements in Detroit's Wayne County and Flint's Genesee County, rather than the balanced budget counties of Oakland and Kent County. So in other words, we know where we're going. We're not going towards the successful counties. We're going towards the unsuccessful counties. So the third question is, do these new contracts address these unfair disparities? Not unreasonable.
No.
Okay, I go on. Our county has made promises of secure health care and pensions to current and already retired employees that are estimated to be underfunded by approximately $100 million. Exactly how will these new contracts affect the county's ability to fulfill your promises to county employees without reducing services or increasing taxes? An important issue, because if you're $100 million in the hole and you're signing contracts, which, by the way, these contracts account for approximately 80% of all of the county spending. So you can fiddle about the free laptops and any number of other things. But these three contracts added to the 7 account for about 80% of all of the county's discretionary budget. So in other words, you got $100 million in the hole, buds.
Yeah.
How's this count? How are these contracts going to address that? And then I finish up. Simply stated, how much more or less will these contracts cost the taxpayers of Muskegon County? If it will be less, let's celebrate together. If it will be more, please explain. If you don't know, how can you vote on these contracts? In short, you have a sacred responsibility to fully understand in great detail just how these union agreements will affect the ability of the county to provide services and manage the scarce funds available. Please assure us, citizens, that you have the answers and will share them with us before you vote. Otherwise, I implore you to postpone your vote until you have fulfilled your responsibilities and know specifically just what your vote would cost, just like you would do if it was your own money. The response to that
Well, there was a response.
plea was
they had a gun to my head. I had to do it.
No, from County Commissioner, or County Commission Chairman Ken Mahoney looked up after my little plea and said, any other comments?
Hey, he gave me a free calendar there at the parade a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, he's a nice guy.
It was pretty exciting.
He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was the response that we, the taxpayers, got from the leader of our county. Now, interestingly, just a little bit after that, and by the way, this is going to be online. I did do video all the county meetings, and it will be online so that you can see that I'm not fudging what was said.
Right.
But one of the more erudite and articulate county commissioners, Commissioner John Snyder, felt that he must respond. And his term, he said, I feel Mr. Riley's comments deserve a response. And essentially what he said was the process was initiated a while ago. People can plan. There have been no major changes on the current employees. It's a good program. We've made a lot of progress. Transparency has all been, all the changes have been reviewed in the newspaper. Well, to that comment, I say bullpocky.
Yeah.
There've been no publicity whatsoever that I'm aware of, and I'm a junkie about this. But what I found interesting was, now I didn't ask outrageous questions. I don't think. Perhaps they might have been viewed as being outrageous, but how many paid days off?
They were questions that they didn't want to answer, basically.
Well, they were questions that they themselves didn't know the answer to, but they themselves didn't even bother asking. And I can tell you, the paid days off, you have to go to like maybe parts of the different contracts and add them together. It's called arithmetic. But a long-term complaint that I've had with the county, and it continues to this moment, is that they continue to vote on things without doing the homework. These folks, their combined compensation, including pension. I just found out you can get, this is really nifty, you can get a county pension as a county commissioner if you have been a county commissioner for 3 years. So for 3 years, you get a what would amount to a lifetime pension.
Right.
I don't know what the amount would be, but isn't that lovely?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that nice? But they're voting on things, I think, without doing their homework. You know what? The answer could have been to me, Mr. Riley, thank you for your blah blah. But the facts are that we sat down, we looked at all of these. Here are the days off. There's 3 fewer than there were before. We have talked with our actuaries and our accountants. This is what it's going to cost us expected this year. This is what it cost us last year. These are the things that they would do. You can be darn sure they would do if it was their own company.
So basically, they don't do their homework like you do your homework, because they don't expect people to be asking these questions.
There weren't a lot of smiley faces at your host of EyeOnMuskegon on Thursday. No, there were not. And I'd love the response. Are there any other comments? One thing let's move on from that happy note, but our county.
We should start putting those videotapes on Muskegon television too. That'd be kind of
Oh, hey,
you can do that.
Can you just jump on that? Can you explain what you've been doing on the television thing, Oscar? Because I think that's really cool.
Well, right now what we're doing is I'm videotaping Jim and his show right now, so it'll be on Muskegon television, TV 38, Comcast 397, I think it is, and it just basically shows that Jim and his beautiful self and what he's got,
full geezer,
what he's got to share with the community, and I think it's a good thing to have on Muskegon television. That's what local television is all about.
It's just like Howard Stern and who's the other fella?
Well, you wouldn't be Howard Stern though, because you're kind of you're talking facts. Howard's talking smut. So
good point. And plus, I get paid a tad less than Howard.
Just a tad.
Howard doesn't take calls from the folks in Muskegon.
No, that's true.
Now, what days and time?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's at 8 o'clock. It's going to be 8 o'clock every Monday now.
On Monday nights. And what channel is that?
Channel 38 and Comcast 397, I think.
397 is where it is in Comcast.
397, yeah, okay.
Don't we work well, self-promoting me?
That's right.
Thank you, Oscar. Appreciate it.
And then, of course, my show immediately follows that with PT and OZ.
You know what? I got to tell you, Oscar told me about this, about his show, PT and OZ.
Yeah.
Okay.
Reminiscing, yeah.
And it's fabulous, guys. If you like old radio, the two guys sit side by side, and you guys play music.
Yeah.
You play 45s. Go ahead.
He's got 14,000 45s in his collection. I've got a ton of 80s videos and 90s videos that from the DJing years and stuff like that. So there's some pretty unique things, and we try to dig into the information about the artists, where they're at today, what they're doing, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And to me, that I must say, it's worth a shot.
It's all that useless information we have in our head from years that.
And you guys have a lot of fun doing it.
Oh, we have a ball.
I think so. Anyway, 397, channel 397 on Comcast, and that would be 8:30?
8 o'clock.
Or 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock, yep.
Okay. Okay, let's get back. Enough about you. Let's talk about me.
Okay.
No, actually, this isn't about me whatsoever. This is about the brilliance of our federal government and the brilliance of our wonderful local government. Wood TV had this. It was actually the Colbert Report. We have become, the state of Michigan and the Homeland Security have become the jokes of the country, at least for the moment. Homeland Security grants paid for snow cone machines throughout West Michigan. But the interesting thing here is they call it the justification for the purchase is medical, not recreational. 13 counties were able to be given the Arctic Blast snow cone makers. This is under a Homeland Security grant that was administered through the West Shore Regional Planning Commission. And the written justification for the funding insists, quote, machines will assist in treating the onset of heat exhaustion and stroke during large-scale events or activities, including possible terrorist incidents or similar emergencies. So I would imagine in the event of a terrorist attack, the snow cone machines will be set up here in Muskegon County, or the machine, I guess we'll only have the one, and that will make things wonderful. Now, the narrative continues on here. They say local emergency managers, which I would imagine the emergency manager, which in our county I believe is the sheriff, insist machines will assist with treating the onset of heat exhaustion and stroke during large-scale events or activities, including possible terrorist incidents. I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. The local emergency managers believe they can use the snow cones machine to produce ice quickly to help cool down suffering patients. And apparently they've never heard of ice coolers or bags of ice. If they're truly, folks, this is ridiculous. But believe it or not, it gets better. I got to go fast on this one. They also said emergency management agencies can use the snow cone machine as an attraction at public functions where they are trying to recruit volunteers. So if we get into a situation where the government says there's just no fat to cut, you might suggest maybe snow cone machines. So there we go, folks. We will be back.
Don't you love him sometime? Yeah.
Your West Michigan Chevy dealers and Benton Baker Chevrolet have teamed together as Chevy gives more back to our local community this holiday season with the West Michigan Chevy and Benton Baker Coat and Food Drive. Join us by donating winter jackets for all ages and non-perishable food items. Stop by Benton Baker on I-96 exit 16 Coopersville. Help us fill our West Michigan food pantries this holiday season. Benton Baker is committed to our community, and Benton Baker is giving back more. With every vehicle purchased in December, Benton Baker will give back to help the Coat and Food Drive. Stop by Benton Baker in Coopersville to donate your unwanted coats and non-perishable food items. Together, we can make this a better holiday season for everyone, especially those that most need our help this holiday season. Benton Baker thanks you for your business and for helping to make our community a better place to live and work. Happy holidays from Benton Baker, proud member of the West Michigan Chevy Dealers.
America had just gone to war when Felipe Adams volunteered.
I knew what I was signing up for. I knew the consequences. I took a bullet to the side and left me paralyzed.
For Armando de la Rosa, the Navy was a chance to serve and see the world.
I got medically discharged in 2001.
Armando and Felipe were brought together by a unique organization that serves our paralyzed veterans.
If there was no PVA, it'd be a lot of confusion. Our training is to better the veteran. We help out with the auto grant, the special housing adaptation grant, education, prosthetics, Our main focus is spinal cord injury and disease, but we see anybody.
First thing he had asked me before he even asked my name was I being taken care of as a veteran? And I thought that was pretty good.
Changing lives, building futures. That's Paralyzed Veterans of America. To learn more, visit pva.org.
Somebody ought to have the courage to tell the truth. These people are terrorists. They teach terrorism in their schools. They have textbooks that say if there are 13 Jews and 9 Jews are killed, how many Jews are left? We pay for those textbooks through our aid money.
President Obama's health care reform law also coming under fire.
Once government uses force to mold behavior or mold the economy, they've overstepped the bounds and they violated the whole concept of our revolution and our Constitution.
Texas Congressman Ron Paul, the Iowa caucuses will be held on January 3rd. They're protesting again in Russia to voice their outrage over last week's parliamentary elections. On Saturday, tens of thousands braved the cold.
They're alleging ballot stuffing and vote rigging. They carried signs that read, "Putin's party is a party of crooks and thieves, and Russia without Putin." They say they want their voices to be heard and won't stop until they are. Meanwhile, former Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev also called on the Kremlin to redo the elections. United Russia denies any cheating.
Fox Radio's Jessica Gallagher in Moscow. Russian President Dmitry Medvedev has agreed to step down next year, clearing the way for Prime Minister Vladimir Putin to return to the post he held for 8 years. At least 3 people are dead after a powerful 6.5 magnitude earthquake strikes western Mexico.
This is a very seismically active area in Mexico, so this is by no means unusual. We have had reports of minor damage in the epicentral area.
Dale Grant with the U.S. Geological Survey. Buildings in the capital of Mexico City rattled. The resort city of Acapulco also feeling it. No reports of aftershocks. You're listening to Fox News Radio. Fair and balanced.
Some people would call him a loser.
Your West Michigan Chevy dealers and Benton Chevrolet have teamed together as Chevy gives more to the local community this holiday season with the West Michigan Chevy and Benton Chevrolet Coat and Food Drive. Join us by donating winter jackets for all ages, and the Cans from Fans semi-trailer is on hand at the Benton 20-acre Motor Mall for you to drop off non-perishable food items. Help us fill our West Michigan food pantries this holiday season. Benton is committed to our community, and Benton is giving more back with every vehicle purchased in December. Benton will give back to help the Coat and Food Drive. We also invite you to stop by Benton Chevrolet on Henry Street. Donate your unwanted coats and non-perishable food items. Together, we can make this a better holiday season for everyone. Your West Michigan Chevy dealer and Benton Chevrolet, thank you for your business and helping to make our community a better place to live and work. Happy holidays from Benton Chevrolet, proud member of the West Michigan Chevy dealers.
Peace Prize have collected their award.
In Oslo, Norway, 3 women of peace share the highest global honor.
And now I have the pleasure to call upon the Nobel Peace Prize for 2011, President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, to come forward to receive the gold medal and the diploma.
Ellen Johnson Sirleaf of Liberia, Africa's first democratically elected female president, just re-elected and widely credited with helping end that country's civil war, shares the prize with fellow Liberian Lema Bowie, who campaigned for women's rights and against rape, and Talakul Karman of Yemen, who struggled against and helped topple the regime there. The prize seen as recognition of the fight for women's rights wherever women face oppression. Chris Stanley, Fox News Radio.
The upcoming winter could be especially punishing for thousands of people in the Northeast. Congress could cut more than $1 billion from a federal home heating aid program. Several states have already reduced assistance. It's been a quarter century since the film Top Gun hit theaters, and now Tom Cruise is planning to reprise his role.
I'm Maverick. That's right, a naval aviator.
The 1986 aviation classic is getting a follow-up, and Tom Cruise has confirmed he'll be back as Maverick.
I am dangerous.
Tony Scott is back to direct the new installment and says they want to make a film that's in the same kind of tone as the first one. They also want to shoot it in the same way as Top Gun. Sabrina Sabah, Fox News Radio.
He wasn't laughing then, but he's chuckling now after being kicked off an American Airlines flight last Tuesday for failing to turn off his smartphone. Actor Alec Baldwin apologized to himself by posing as the pilot on NBC's Saturday Night Live.
I am ashamed at the way he was treated. I mean, what harm would it do to let him keep playing his game? Not any game, mind you, but a word game for smart people.
Weekend Update host Seth Meyers repeatedly questioning the thinly veiled performance, the actor referring to himself as an American treasure. Pam Puso, Fox News Radio.
Here's the official News Talk 1090 WKBZ forecast for today. Mostly sunny skies at a high around 40. Southwest winds 20 to 30. It'll stay clear tonight, a low of 34 with southwest winds 15 to 25. More sunshine tomorrow with a few afternoon clouds and a high of 41 with south winds 10 to 20. And then cloudy skies for Tuesday and Wednesday. The high Tuesday 41. Wednesday's high 43 with a chance of rain. Keeping you informed, this is News Talk 1090 WKBZ, the talk of Muskegon.
Hi, my name's Bob. Hi, Bob. I see this ad on TV. Says I can reduce my debt by 50%. I call. They told me to stop paying my bills, stop talking to my creditors. They'd take care of everything.
I gave them thousands, but most of it went to their fees.
Getting out of debt is neither quick nor easy. There are those who will tell you anything to win your trust.
I'm more in debt now because the fees and interest on my cards kept piling up.
Talk to your creditors directly, or to find a nonprofit agency near you, visit debtadvice.org.
Funniest thing was, he says, by the end of the year, which of course is just a few weeks from now, that will likely climb to 12 million. So there's some funky math going on here, but this is a district that's in massive disarray, and they have called for some help. Now, those of us who live here know that Muskegon Heights is mostly a minority city, and the schools have mostly minority students in them. And as we talked last week, the education of these students, the MAISD scores, is just awful. And so what is the response from, I would say, arguably one of the most powerful voices in Muskegon Heights, certainly in the education establishment of Muskegon Heights, and this would be the president of the MEA, the local, the teachers union president, and her comments were, you were elected by a community to do a job. She's very unhappy, and she believes that they made a mistake by bringing in a special emergency manager. And one of the things that the emergency manager can do, of course, is to affect some of the union contracts, because 90%, I'm sure, of the budget, the current budget, is spent on employees and employee wages and benefits, and of course, as we're seeing with Muskegon County, probably an enormous amount of money this is going towards retiree benefits. So what you have is the head of the school union doesn't say a word about the children, doesn't say anything about the parents or the taxpayers. They're interested in the union employees, and I think that is one of the very serious problems that we have in our county as it concerns race, is that the people who are the leaders, some of them are self-appointed leaders, but at least the biggest voices in the minority community, on one hand tell us that they do care and that they are interested in the people, the children, the old folks, the families in terms of crime and all, but when push comes to shove, their actions tend to show that they're really more interested in their own particular little area of power, and we saw this. Oh golly, it wasn't that long ago, maybe 5 years ago. But one of the mayors of Muskegon Heights, when she left office, I imagine she was voted out of office, took the car. Apparently, Muskegon Heights at that time was so flush. Right. And they gave the mayor a vehicle, but it was for, business, city business, and that person took the car, and when caught on it, was very outraged. So there's a mindset in that community among some of the leaders that the leaders are special, far better than they are than the rest of the folks, and I think that's unfortunate. And when we get back to the reason I bring the education thing up is that I mentioned this last week, but a recent report has come out, and this is unsurprisingly, it says, a Department of Education report estimated that only, now get this, 31% of college graduates were proficient at reading. This is 31% of college graduates.
Right.
All right. We know, and by the way, the definition of proficient prose reader would be capable of comparing viewpoints in two editorials or interpreting a table about blood pressure, age, and physical activity. Well, these are not rocket surgery here. And so that's college graduates. And one of the biggest problems I think that we have in Muskegon Heights is education. And I have a question of the seriousness and the sincerity of the leaders in our minority communities, and they're all over the county, all over the state for that matter, because they're not screaming bloody murder that their children are not getting educated. We now have a system, an education system in Muskegon Heights, and I'm sure it's not seriously different in some of the other communities, but in Muskegon Heights, where they are now $10, maybe $12 billion in debt, and they have some of the lowest. Matter of fact, what Muskegon Heights High School, I believe, was rated the lowest high school in the state in terms of educating its children last year. You have the school union out there screaming, no, we don't need a special leader to be brought in by the state, making no mention where you're going to get the money to pay the teachers. There's an enormous disconnect. One of the things that I've seen, and I don't know if you've ever done this, but I went to a Mona Shores school district meeting last year where they had the annual lottery for the schools of choice. Mm-hmm. And for those of you who are not aware of this, that Mona Shores and some of the other schools within our county have what's called schools of choice. So people who live any place in the county can get into this lottery, and however many spots they have. And Mona Shores, I don't know, might have had 20 or 30 or so for the, I believe, might have been the high school. And you could tell, because I've been going to their meetings, you can tell who were the non-Norton Shores people who were there. They were, dressed a little differently. Quite often they had their children. There were new faces, because typically at a school board meeting, there are very few people. And they operated this just like a TV lottery. I mean, they pulled names out of a hat, and people were, are we going to win? Are we going to lose? And when names were pulled out, people jumped up, and their kids jumped up. They were thrilled. These are people who are fervent in their desire to educate their children and to get them out of these systems that are just not doing the job. And when it was finally over, there were a bunch of families there who didn't get picked, and they were. In one case, I saw one of the mothers was crying. These are people who are desperate for their children. Mm-hmm. We have a white community, which is the power in our county, as it is in most places in Michigan. And we have a black community, and there's no outrage over this. We have the Democrat Party and the MEA, Michigan Education Association, the teachers union, who are fighting tooth and nail against the expansion of charter schools. The waiting list for charter schools in our state is 12,000 people who are on a waiting list to get their kids out of school systems, out of schools that don't educate. And to me, again, I question the sincerity and the seriousness of the leaders, the big mouths, the people who can affect change in our county. Be they minority or non-minority, when they say they care, and in fact, they're not advocating for real change, real education. There are things that can be done. There's an interesting report out here. This is, to me, fascinating. Have you ever heard of the MacArthur Foundation, the Genius Awards?
Yeah.
Well, the Genius Awards, a guy who just won one, so this is a big-time smart guy.
I won one myself, but
did you?
I don't want to talk about it. So.
Well, good for you. It makes sense. You've been able to master the board, so I can understand that. I know I wouldn't do that
occasionally.
But he won this award for this research that he did, and this had to do with data from New York City charter schools. But what he found was that class size, per pupil spending, number of teachers with certificates or advanced degrees had nothing to do with student test scores in language and math. Mm-hmm. Now, these are all the things that the big education establishment, the big unions, are saying these are what we need. And, of course, interestingly, every one of these things require more money from the taxpayer. But he goes on here, or at least the article goes on. It says, creating a culture focused on student achievement, setting high academic expectations consistently fared better, and the results were consistent with whether the charter's program was geared towards creative arts or hardcore behavioral discipline. And to me, that's critical. And they finish up here in saying, perhaps unsurprisingly, Schools that claimed a relentless focus on academic goals also tended to produce better test scores. Schools that focused on self-esteem and emotional health, not as much. So that being said, folks, there's a way to fix it. You got to show your seriousness, and let's attack it. But we do have a call, so let's take the caller. Okay. Caller, you're on the air. Well, maybe not.
How about this one?
Well, we'll try another.
Okay, hey, Jim.
Yes, hey.
Yeah,
Hey,
this
caller.
is Bob from Oceana County. I want to applaud your courage in taking on some racial issues. It takes a little bit of toughness to do that.
Or stupidity.
Yeah, I think when one criticizes spending in areas such as Muskegon Heights, they sometimes do so at their own risk. There's some things that divide us as races, and I just want to give you one little example. I was calling into a local talk show on sports last week because they were discussing the Tim Tebow issue, and the screener asked me what I was going to talk about, and I said, well, he was being criticized, I think, mostly because he's white, conservative, and Christian.
Well, now, okay, let's just, for the listeners here, Tim Tebow is a quarterback for a professional football team, and
Right.
he's a very open Christian.
And he'll pray in the end zone after he scores, and if somebody asks him a question, he'll bluntly give his opinion on who he owes his blessings to.
And he's been widely criticized for his open displays of his faith.
Right, and so they put me on hold for about 10 minutes, and later on said, well, we're not going to discuss it further, and I didn't get through. And that may be true, or it may be the thrust of the point I was trying to make, which was as follows, that the really great, excellent young man quarterback for the University of Michigan, Denard Robinson, has been doing Tebows in the end zone ever since he's been at Michigan. But, in fact, before Tebow was doing this as a pro, but there's never been one word of criticism about that. And
that's interesting, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And in fact, when I was listening to the radio show, an obviously black man called in and said, well, who do you expect Tebow to give his grace and love to? And the talk show guys, are just radio talk show sports guys, they weren't rocket scientists, but they didn't have any answer for that. And we all remember one generation ago when we were growing up, Muhammad Ali, for 15 years, every time they put a microphone to him, he would praise Allah, and there would be no problem with that. In fact, now he gets a presidential seal, and there's postage stamps against him for him in his honor. And it's really not because he was a great fighter, but because he was a man of conviction. So it's people really are less racial than sometimes government causes us to be, or sometimes the press is exploitive. And so when you're taking on Muskegon Heights here, and you couldn't get a good answer, or they couldn't get a good answer, and pretty much you're sort of told not to go there, it's sort of because of what's politically acceptable. There's never been any criticism of Denard Robinson kneeling in the end zone.
And nor should there be. But you're right. What is, I think, offensive to a lot of folks is that, yes, there's racism, but there's what we call reverse racism, too, and that doesn't help anybody either. So thank you so much for the call. And we're going to take a break. We will be back, folks.
Oh, don't you love me sometime?
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Monday on the Wall Street Journal this morning. Are your old spending habits coming back? New stats indicate that heading into the holiday season, we're spending again, but not because we're earning more money. Also, if you're up for a new job, how to know if your personality is a fit at your potential new employer, and how to throw your holiday party on a tight budget. Monday on the Wall Street Journal this morning.
Catch it weekday mornings from 6 till 8 on News Talk 1090 WKBZ, the talk of Muskegon.
Smog, garbage, sewers, car exhaust. Today's world puts our sense of smell on overload. Luckily, there are places we can go to refocus our senses. Our national wildlife refuges. When you visit, your nose will instantly recognize the purity of nature. Bask in the aromatic scent of the black pine trees blowing in the wind. Detect the sweet fragrance of primroses, wild violets, and blue sage. Smell the fresh salt water in the air as waves crash into rocky shoals. When you smell these things, you're smelling the world the way we found it. With over 500 refuges across America, you don't have to go far to make a special connection with nature. Learn more at fws.gov/refuges. That's fws.gov/refuges.
In the streets below, traffic had stopped. Pedestrians were lying on sidewalks and curled up in doorways. There was no sign of violence, no wrecks, nothing like that. It was as if the people in New York had simply decided to stop whatever they were doing and pass out. Ice coated my stomach. The invasion has started. To find out what happens next, read Percy Jackson and the Olympians by Rick Riordan. Explore new worlds and check out more cool books at your local library. And visit read.gov. Brought to you by the Library of Congress and the Ad Council.
I took a bullet to the side and left me paralyzed.
For injured veterans like Felipe Adams, there are veterans like Armando de la Rosa ready to help. Paralyzed Veterans of America, changing lives, building futures. Visit PVA.org.
Full, and everything donated at your local credit union will stay in that local area. Together, we can make a difference.
The Talk of Muskegon. News Talk 1090. WKBZ.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes.
And we are back at Eye on Muskegon. Muskegon's #1 rated 8:30 start every Sunday morning show. We do want to hear your voice. It was a great call we just got, by the way. And give us a call, 231-830-3109. We want to hear what you have to say. And it's an interesting topic, I think. And we have another caller, so let's just go right to that caller.
Hello.
Caller, are you on?
Yes, I am here. Yes.
How you doing?
All right. Yes, I wanted to comment a little bit. You know, you're talking about Muskegon Heights, and you know the thing about it is, it isn't always the school system's fault. You know, you have to look at what's going on at home, and you also have to look at the fact, you know, when children... FIA is less likely to take minority children out of and disabled children out of the homes. There's a study, it was done, and it was aired on public television as well, where minority children and disabled children, 80% of them do not get adopted, where with white children with no disabilities, 80% of them do get adopted.
What do you think about that?
What I think about it, it tells me that we're still a prejudiced society.
Well, okay. I don't think there's any question, as I mentioned this last week. I think everybody, it's ingrained to be prejudiced towards people who are like yourselves. And I don't think it makes one prejudiced by, if you're a black couple, for instance, with preferring to adopt a black child.
I think you're prejudiced. I think you are. I don't care what color you are. If you exclude somebody because they're of another race, you're prejudiced.
Well, okay. I know I've heard that argument. I will disagree with it, but I respect your view of it. But let's get back to the school system, because you had suggested, and I think this has something to do with the schools, that there's not the support that's given to the children. That it's a tougher job in let's just say in this case the Muskegon Heights schools, and I don't think anybody argues with you on that. But why is there not some outrage? Why are there not protests? Why is the only voice that I've been able to see in our local media on this from the teachers union president, who thought this was a terrible thing to happen?
Well, I'll tell you something. Now, it's not the teachers' fault. You can't blame the teachers. I mean,
so who would you blame? How would you fix it if the teachers can't fix it? Who are you going to speak to?
All right, the teachers, they can't fix the problem. What I'm speaking to, how I would fix it, it has to be done, the way I would fix it in this county is, for kids, I would provide a place for the kids. Have you ever heard of a campus school? I went to one, Michigan School for the Blind, before it was closed in
Is that the one? Was that the one in Lansing?
Yes.
Did little Stevie Wonder go there?
Yes.
Oh, very interesting.
I was there a year. I started there a year after him.
Okay. All right.
And they had house parents there, and they had, of course, in the classroom teachers, and it was a lot better all-around activities than anything I'd experienced in public school when I went to public school before that.
Well, you're suggesting that there are other choices, and I would agree with you. And if you caught when we were talking about charter schools in our state, where there are 12,000 students who are looking to get out of the prison of their current school system or the school that they are forced to go into, you're suggesting that we ought to try other things. I'm with you. I think that what you just said, and I'm not sure specifically that's the best.
Campus school. It's better that, charter schools don't always, you remember the charter school that closed here in Muskegon because, studies are showing this too, that the charter schools are doing a poorer job actually than the public schools are, the regular public schools. And the charter schools do not have to take disabled children.
That may be. But Oscar, you had a comment.
Well, I was going to say you have another point too, as far as it starts from the home. I mean, I've got a handicapped left arm, which disables me from doing a few things, but not much. But I was always, I know, like as you do, you had to always prove yourself that you could do what you were supposed to do, and I always had to prove myself all the way through. But the point I'm trying to make is that it started at home for me. My father was a carpenter. And he would never show me how to use a hammer because he figured I just couldn't do it. So my point is, I think a lot of it starts at home, where people think that, okay, you just can't do it, so why go ahead and push it to it?
Well, there's no.
I think a lot of people stop.
There's no question. Well, and the fact that you had a father in your home puts you ahead of certainly so many poor folks who don't have.
And that was nothing against my dad. He just didn't understand, what I could or couldn't do.
We are products of the environment and the genetics that we came from. But I would say this to the people who are defending the schools, and I'm not on an attack on the schools or the teachers, although I'm not very. I don't think the comments by the school board president really, or not the school board, the teachers union president were helpful. But if in fact the schools say, look, we can't educate these kids because it's the parents' fault or for whatever reason, then that's okay. Let them make them free. If you can't educate them, don't force those kids to come into the schools where the attitude of the teachers is, we can't educate you.
Right.
Let them go to charter schools or other schools, go with vouchers or any number of other ways. And I like the caller's concept. He's someone who experienced both the public schools and a unique, different type. What's happening is the school unions are saying we are against any other choice other than what we have. And then at the same time, they're saying, but we still can't educate your kids because it's the parents' fault.
But what you said, too, though, you said that when people got to be into the Mona Shore School District, they felt like they were winning the lottery. Well, in that case, the parents think automatically that the school, Muskegon Heights School, is not the system to be in. So they are already against the school system itself. So,
well, the parents have made a determination that their children aren't being educated there, and certainly the MEAP scores prove that out. My point in going here in terms of education is the path to success, or at least certainly it's a major portion of it. And I would like to see the white community, the powerful white community, and the powers of the black community and the Hispanic community and any of the other minority communities that we have here, screaming bloody murder, not in support of the current system that is so failed, but in support of the children. And to a certain extent, when you have Muskegon Heights is 10 or shortly to be $12 million in the hole, support of the taxpayers, because what happens is when you bankrupt a city or you bankrupt a school system, what happens? People move out. Businesses move out, and no one's likely to move in. And so that's one area that we can, I think, all agree on, that the education of these of minorities in particular, race differences, can be improved dramatically, but it can't be improved if nobody gives a poodle about it, if no one's willing to stand up and say, wait a minute, let's bring these MEAP scores in and scream at a school board meeting, what are you doing to fix this? Now, there's there's plenty of reasons why. I don't want reasons. I want answers.
Answers, right.
One thing, Newt Gingrich, of course, running for president on the Republican ticket, last week got into trouble which I found interesting, but he made the comment about poor children in really, here's the comment. Really poor children in really poor neighborhoods have no habits of working and nobody around them who works. So they literally have no habit of showing up on Monday. They have no habit of staying all day. They have no habit of, I do this and you give me cash unless it's illegal. Now, he went on, and but apparently this was what got a lot of people's ire up. Certain people felt it was condescending and whatever. I think anybody who knows that poor people, no matter what their color, not all poor people, but certainly many children don't understand this. And we see this with the truancy in schools, kids not showing up for school, and they don't learn the lessons that you and I learned because we had two-parent families, right, and whatever. Now, I think you'd have to be, frankly, a moron to think that Newt Gingrich was saying everybody under a certain level of income is a poor parent or has children that don't even have the basics. But what I did find interesting, and this was a poll that was done by the Mail Online, which is a United Kingdom English newspaper, and the poll was, and this is obviously it's not an official statistically accurate poll, but it had over 1 million people who were interested in Newt Gingrich's comments over in England. The question was, is Newt Gingrich right to say poor children have no habit of working? And what shocked me was that 54% of the people who took the time to vote said yes. So even bringing it up in the way that he did, even bringing it up in the way, and of course he went on to have some ideas of how we could help these young people learn the basics of being on time and showing up for school and all. 54% apparently were offended, and that's, like I said, over 1 million people had responded to that particular poll. That kind of caught my attention.
You know, we last week we had a caller that mentioned about the father being important in the family, which I believe it is.
Of course.
But I have 4 daughters, and 3 of them had gone through the situation of divorce and you know, being a single mom. And see, I applaud the single mom for what they have to do, because they're not only, because usually the dad is a deadbeat dad and isn't taking care of their kids.
Well, let's not say usually. Quite often.
Usual. Okay.
Okay.
Well, in the situations
let's not
I've
have
seen anyway.
The deadbeat dads out here, or the non-deadbeat dads out here with the pitchforks.
But anyway, the ones that I've seen, the moms are doing, they're playing the mother, they're playing the father, they're playing the person that has to work, 40 to 50 to 60 hours a week, and then try to find some time for their kids. So it's a rough job. So yeah, I understand why the kids feel a little lacked that way, but boy, I tell you, some of those moms, I got to applaud them, because they are doing something that I don't think I could do, as if I had just my kids and it was just me.
Well, look, I think everyone applauds any good parent. And,
well, I know that they have to have the. Yeah.
What you just said, though, is that when you have a single parent, and it's most often a woman, hopefully it's a woman, sometimes it's a girl, but those single parents who actually do the job and get it done right are to be applauded. And there are many, well, there's thousands of them, certainly in Muskegon County. But that's a different issue from where we have a very heavily financed power structure in the educational system. Whether your child comes in with the tools or not, if you can't educate the child, I don't have a problem. I can certainly understand teachers saying, hey, we can't do this. But I'm not hearing anything from the educational establishment. I'm not hearing from the parents groups. I'm not hearing from the state senators and other legislators. I'm not hearing from them saying, we've got to fix this. Eric Holter accused white America of being cowards on race, and I certainly can understand that elected politicians don't want to go there, because something I would think innocuous, like Newt Gingrich said, is gotten to this huge outpouring. And do we? Am I correct? We do have a.
Yeah, we do have a caller.
Oh, we do have a caller. So, caller, let's get talking.
Okay, we did have a caller.
Okay, well, we'll continue on here, but again, I'm going to move on from education to
the one thing before you move on, I just wanted to tell you too that I think that this show, the importance of this show is to let people know that they have a voice. I think a lot of people don't realize that they have a voice. that they can make a difference, that they can make a change?
Well, I think, thank you for bringing that up, and it is true. I think the two callers that we've had today were, I think, very interesting. They brought things up that I wasn't aware of.
Right.
And we do have a voice. You can go to a school board meeting. You can go. Matter of fact, I've mentioned before that, matter of fact, I better break into this one right now, because every Tuesday and Thursday when there's a county commission meeting, I'm at Carmen's Cafe in downtown Muskegon from 2 to 3:15, and if you want to help your voice, or at least get a little help in getting your voice heard, come on in, and I'd love to talk with you. Just walk in the door and ask, where's the radio guy? At 3:15, I leave Carmen's and go to the county building, which is just a couple of blocks away, for the county commission meeting, and you're welcome to come with me there as well. But we do have a voice. It's real tough if you've never been to a school board meeting or a township meeting or whatever, to go in alone. You don't even know where to go, and most people aren't comfortable standing up and making a spectacle of themselves. But I would like to see more and more people doing this, and this is one of the reasons that I have such mixed emotions about the Occupy Muskegon movement, because, dang it, they are active. The Muskegon County Republicans are not active. The Democrats don't appear to be very active. The Muskegon Tea Party is not nearly as active as this Occupy group. I'm not crazy about their methods. They seem to have been taken over by Mary Valentine, the ex-representative, who appears to be actively running for a third term, and other union supporters. So Mary is prominent in the We Are the People, which is a union-backed group. But they're doing something. And if you do care, you have a voice, but you've got to stand tall, and it does take guts. Too many of our leaders aren't showing that courage, so I can understand why you wouldn't. But we're not going to give up here. We would like to encourage everyone.
And as you say too, when you speak up, they say next question. But if you have more voices there, more people that are concerned, and more people that are asking questions, they have to do something. I was shocked. I think I'd mentioned this in an earlier show, but I was really shocked when this small kind of scruffy group with tattoos and piercings and all that were their issue was the letters are better. In other words, they wanted letters to be able to be delivered to the prisoners at the county jail. They showed up with 3, 4, 5, 6 people about 4 or 5 times at the county commission meeting, and son of a gun, they got the policy changed. It wasn't very many people. These are not articulate, erudite Harvard graduates. Watch yourself there. Watch yourself.
Well, no, they were actually they were quite articulate, but they didn't walk in with the suits and the briefcases and all this. They were just concerned that there were young people, and they did achieve something in a relatively short period of time, and we can do that in Muskegon County. We can do it any place. I certainly encourage anyone, even white people, because Eric Holter has called you a coward, but to get interested in what's going on in the minority parts of our community that are totally failing. It's heartbreaking to drive through Muskegon Heights today. And, they've even got, and it's sad, I on Muskegon Heights Middle School, they've got a banner, and I think it's like 2 years in a row, or maybe 3 years in a row, adequate performance.
Right.
They're shouting adequate performance as if it was a success.
Right.
That's kind of sad.
I agree.
And what's sad is we have another break stopping my
train of thought.
My everything here. Yeah. Blah, 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 blah. We will be back, folks. The number 231-830-3109.
Love me sometime.
It's the perfect gift for anyone on your holiday list.
I
knew I was stuck at this kid's house for the night, I decided to just go to sleep and get the night over with. But those guys came into the bedroom and got into a massive pillow fight. Let me tell you, it's not easy falling asleep when a sweaty little kid falls on you every 5 seconds. Even after the lights went out, Raleigh and his friends stayed up. A bunch of them snuck up on me to try and pull the hand in a bowl of warm water trick. Well, that was enough for me. I went downstairs to sleep in the basement even though it was pitch black. I left my sleeping bag upstairs and that was a mistake because it was freezing. I think it was probably the longest night of my life. When the sun came up this morning, I found out the reason it was so cold. I was sleeping right by the sliding glass door and some fool had gone and left it open overnight. That really stunk because if I knew there was a way to escape last night, I definitely would have taken it. To read more about the sleepover, check out Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Last Straw by Jeff Kinney. Explore new worlds and check out more cool books at your local library. And visit read.gov. Brought to you by the Library of Congress and the Ad Council.
Every day, epic power failure strikes thousands of victims.
I was home alone in the bathroom of my new apartment when 2 guys broke in. I tried calling the cops, but my phone died, so I sat on the toilet seat and listened to them unmount my flat screen.
Avoid epic power failure with the PowerMat backup battery. One full charge whenever, wherever you need it. Stay charged all the time with a PowerMat smartphone receiver and charging mat. Just enable your phone and drop in charge. PowerMat. Stay in charge. Visit stayincharge.powermat.com.
This is Mike McCready. You probably know me as one of the founding members of the rock band Pearl Jam and the band's lead guitarist. For the last 24 years, I've been living with Crohn's disease, a chronic and often painful digestive disease. Luckily, I have my disease under control. But so many of the 1.4 million Americans living with Crohn's and a similar disease called ulcerative colitis live day to day not knowing when their disease will strike next. The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation is committed to transforming the lives of those impacted by Crohn's and colitis toward a future based on well-funded, cutting-edge research. You can help by joining one of CCFA's 130 Take Steps walks taking place around the country this year. Make the decision now to join us and take a step toward a future free from Crohn's and colitis. Sign up today at www.cctakesteps.org. That's cctakesteps.org. Take a step. Register today.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you
And again, we are back in beautiful Muskegon County. Got a gorgeous day out there, by the way. And we are talking about race in Muskegon. We're not going to come up with all the answers. Probably won't even come up with any answers. But we would like to get the conversation going. And one of the things that education, of course, is critical. But the reason education is critical, in good measure, is because it leads ultimately to a job so that you can support yourself. And another area that is to me a shame on our country, and it certainly ought to be a shame on our state and in particular on our county, is the horrible unemployment, the massively high unemployment levels among minority, in our case here, black and Hispanic minorities, and the youth. Nationwide, the unemployment level for the black community recently, this is August, but is at its highest level since 1984, and that's 16.7%. I mean, think about that. Now that's, and you know that's understated. The unemployment for whites as a group is around 8%. But it gets even worse. The employment to work ratio among black adults is just over 50%. So in other words, employment looking for work, or employment to population, and for young black men, it is 40%. That's 40% of young black men are employed. That's awful, folks. And we've got to do something that doesn't include just a make-work program that does nothing for them. And by the way, we're going to touch on that in a sec. But we do have a caller, so let's go to the caller. Hello, caller.
Hi. I'm Lou from Norton Shores. I have a comment and a question.
Okay, go right ahead, Lou.
My comment is I enjoyed your earlier caller, the blind gentleman.
Oh, yes, he's excellent.
Okay, well, he made a comment that people ought to be willing to adopt a child regardless of race. And I thought it was rather neat that came from a blind guy, because he's not blinded by the superficial. Skin pigmentation would have absolutely no meaning to him.
That's true. How would he know?
He could relate to people on a human basis. I love it.
We're not making fun of him, but it's just a reality. That is interesting.
He has more sight than many of us.
Excellent point. It's probably best that I didn't catch that when we were on the phone. I would have said something that would have got myself in trouble. So,
I have a question. You've been talking about the educational system and the problem in places like Muskegon Heights in particular.
Yes.
And frankly, I'm confused. You talk about fixing the problem. Well, I have to confess, I don't even know what the problem is. All right? You look at, we're not really talking about black people, but in a sense we are. But the fact remains, we're really talking about a group of our society that's underachieving. And at the present time, they happen to be black. But as you alluded to, I believe it was last week, you're of Irish ancestry. In the 19th century, it was Irishmen. In the early 20th century, it was Italians and Jews. And I don't know if you've read Dalrymple's book talking about the huge suburbs of London, where the people who are plagued by ignorance and unemployment and crime and sexually transmitted disease and 70% out-of-wedlock births, they're all native Englishmen and Englishwomen, okay? So there's some dynamic going on in certain communities where people just don't achieve anywhere near their full potential.
Well, if your point is, which I think it is that it is not just limited to a particular, in our case, Muskegon Heights or the black population,
right.
I agree with you 100%.
Right. Well, but let's look at the situation historically. There was no public school system until 1852. That's when the law was passed in Massachusetts, and New York followed a year later in 1853.
Right.
And at that time, the nation's literacy rate was over 95%. The 1850 census had it at an illiteracy rate of 0.4%.
That's a stunning statistic. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I knew that one, but anyway.
And in the early, even in other states, by the way, as far as free, if you will, public education followed, and I guess by the World War I time frame, they were all there. But even in 1910, the literacy rate in the South was over 85%. Okay? Now, today, we hear that in cities like Detroit, 30 to 40, perhaps 50% of the people are functionally illiterate.
Yeah.
How can a group of people be functionally illiterate? I'm not sure of the definition. I've read that this means that they can't fill out an employment application, write down their own name and address and phone number. And to me, I'm totally incredulous that a person wouldn't learn, even a person with as much as, and forgive me for using what is supposedly an obsolete measure of mental skills, but an IQ as low as, say, 70, certainly ought to be able to write their own name and address and read traffic signs and the labels on packages in stores. I mean, so I'm not sure what the problem is. I mean, clearly our educational system is a mess. I mean, in the sense that it's inefficient, it costs way too much money. But that's true for almost any bureaucracy, particularly unionized, government-run ones.
Well,
but even the post office gets the mail delivered.
Well, let's walk it backwards.
Why do we have all these functionally illiterate people? And I just don't understand.
Well, let's walk it backwards. What's happening is the children from these types of schools, but ultimately the ultimate problem is that they don't have the skills to get jobs, all right? So let's take it back another step then. Why don't they have the skills to get jobs? And the skills, I think, generally would be accepted to be the ability to read at a normal age level, to do minimal arithmetic, and to write minimally. You don't need to write cogent paragraphs, but you've got to be able to read and write and do arithmetic.
Yeah, we wouldn't expect them to read Shakespeare or Chaucer.
Exactly. All right,
or Newton in the Latin, okay?
Okay, so they're not learning that. So then the question is, why are they not learning that? Well,
why aren't they learning that on their own? Are we suggesting that the schools are driving the thirst for knowledge out of them?
I would suspect that may be the case. It may be that the schools, from what I've heard in some of the cases, some of these inner-city schools are so chaotic that there is little education going on. But therein lies the issue that if that's happening, and we know it's happening, we know that they're not learning. We know that in many cases they're graduating. I think social promotion may very well be the main problem. If you didn't learn, I don't know when you learned how to read, but maybe you learned in first grade. If you didn't learn how to read in first grade, and then you are socially promoted into second grade where they don't teach learning, you'll never learn. And who brought us social promotion? It was the education unions, the education establishment. If you didn't learn how to do arithmetic, 2 + 2 is 4 in second or third grade, when you get into fourth grade, you're not going to be able to do whatever comes next.
Okay, I'm not an educator, all right? But if we take race and ethnicity out of this, I think the stark question still remains. What is the problem? Why can't Johnny read? Is there anyone in your audience who understands this and knows the real answer, if there is one?
What he just said is what it is, though, because my side, I've got for instance, my son, a student all the way through school, and we had to move from Mona Shores and go to another school district when I moved, but in the meantime, I was waiting for this house that I was going to get in the Whitehall area, and we had to go to a different school district. I won't mention the district. He went to that school, and he refused to go to school. He was an A student. He loved school. But he refused to go to school because that school was so chaotic that there was nothing being done there anyway. There was nothing happening. It wasn't a school. It was chaotic. It was everybody was pretty much owning the school. The teachers had no control whatsoever. So if you have a school where there's no control, how can a student that wants to learn?
I reject the fact that is acceptable. I certainly agree. Your story, I think, is compelling. And I know this, that as we're doing our radio show, and as you know, it's new for me. I spend almost every waking minute trying to figure out how to make the show better, how to make myself better at the show. Teachers, I think, too often, and administrators too often, school boards too often, and parents and the general public too often accept chaos as, well, we just can't fix it. I'm sick of that attitude. I believe, and you've seen, we've all seen movies like Stand Tall, and where a tough teacher or principal comes in and enforces what's right and does educate people. I've read too many articles about.
There's too many laws against it, though. Now.
But there are too many laws against it. So it will continue to happen as long as we allow it, and it can be fixed. One of the most important things, and I'll just tell you a little story that happened to me. This was about 20 years ago, but I was involved in junior achievement, which this portion of it was project business, where I would go into a junior achievement or a junior high school class, and I did it for, 10 or 15 weeks, and it was a lot of fun. And it gave me at least a little bit of experience in terms of what a teacher experiences. But before I did that, I went into another, it was a new Muskegon or one of those deals, where I went into, I believe it was Muskegon Heights Junior High, and walked into the school, had my suit on. The class was in session, so I waited in the hall. Bell rang, kids ran out into the hallway. Teacher came out. He was a black man in a suit. I introduced myself. He was obviously an extremely bright guy. Seemed to me to be as good a teacher as you could find, at least just from my initial conversation with him. But, the bell had rung and the kids were running around. Well, we're in the classroom, alone, and then the bell rings again. And I'm looking around, and there aren't any kids in the class. And he says, "Excuse me," and he goes out into the hallway. And I look out there, and all the other teachers are out there in the hallway, and they're kind of ushering their kids in, come on, kids, come on, kids. Well, they finally got all the kids in the class and settled down. It was 10 minutes after the bell.
Right.
Every one of those kids was getting 10 minutes less education than kids in another school. But they were learning something that would, I'm sure, harm them for the rest of their lives, at least those who did learn it. And that was, when you're supposed to be on time, when the bell rings, that don't mean nothing.
Right.
That you can come in 10 minutes late. And to me, there's certain little things that the school systems have allowed, and I think in many cases encouraged. The whole self-esteem movement, we know, has just been a disaster. We know that social promotion has been a disaster. And we know in particular that when a young person goes through 13, 14, 15 years of very expensive, as we're finding out, public education, and doesn't realize that when the bell rings at 8 o'clock or 3:15 or whenever the bell rings, that you're to be there in your seat ready to learn. Not only are you not learning, but you take that learned behavior into your first job. And if you show up 10 minutes late on your first job, you may get canned. You probably will.
Right.
And you were never told that that's the kind of behavior that is very destructive. We are running tight on time here, but I want to touch on one other thing that is, and we may have to come back on this next week. But one thing that some of the black leaders have told me is really irksome, and this is where the white establishment or the power establishment in a community will use minorities, or they'll use handicapped people, they'll use other people in order to get the federal grants. And this one to me is particularly onerous. This is one that was just passed by the county commission just last month, and the Michigan Oceanic Consortium issued a blah 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 to provide training and management services for energy conservation apprenticeship readiness (ECAR) program, and it provides training for women, minorities, and economically disadvantaged persons in the energy conservation related construction trades. ECAR offers recruitment, assessment, basic skills remediation, apprenticeship readiness training, stipends, drug screening, and other supportive devices, blah, 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 blah. Well, this is about a $70,000 program, and their intent is to train 10 young people from cities of promise, which in this case is the city of Muskegon Heights, which is just in and of itself a little frightening that they would use that. $70,000. Now, they're going to train young people for jobs in energy conservation. There are no jobs in energy conservation. And the $70,000 isn't going into the community. It's going to go, in this case, it's going to go to probably white people in Muskegon Community College and Orchard View. Now, they did a similar program like this earlier in the year, and these pop up all over the place. These kids, I don't know the level of what they're going to learn, but I know that they're going to be promised that you're going to go through this, you're going to work hard, and then there's great jobs out there, when in fact there aren't. So they're learning something that just isn't true. But what's even worse is there is no provision in this for Muskegon County or anyone to track it and find out, are these kids graduating? Are they getting jobs? Does it really matter? When asked, outrageous question by one of the county commissioners earlier this year when a similar program went through, the person who was reporting on it said, well, less than 4 out of 10 typically get jobs. Now, they didn't ask. The further question was, jobs in this whatever particular field this was. But there are thousands, probably tens of thousands of these kinds of programs that prey, and I use the term prey. They prey on the minority community. They use the little black kids, or they use the little Hispanic kids, or they'll use the handicapped kids to get a grant that hires white people, that does nothing, in many cases even harms the community that they pretend to help. And I think it's wrong. It happens all the time. I asked my county commissioner very specifically, I said, what kind of provisions do you have to track this kind of spending? And then the response I got, which really shocked me, was none. And there wasn't like none, but geez, maybe we ought to track these. No, there was no interest whatsoever. And I know this, that like I have told you, some of the leaders in the black community have come up to me and said that this offends them. Now, I'd like to see them stand up. We do need it. It's going to take more than a couple of old geezer radio guys to change this. But let me.
Thanks for putting me in that category. But anyway.
Well, yeah, you're younger geezer. You're pre-geezer. Next week, December 18th, we'll continue our quest to expose the power that our local politicians have over you and your family. Next week, we're going to look at the latest scam aimed at reducing your control over your own hard-earned money, and it's called government consolidation, or they got a nifty new term for it, collaboration. It's not working in Europe. Will it work for us here in West Michigan? Well, we're going to try and find out. And don't forget, our new start time, folks. The people have spoken. We begin every Sunday at 8:30, and we go for an hour and a half. Stay tuned for Tom Sanaki's Polka Melodies. And I do hope, folks, you have a great week in our little piece of heaven. Thanks so much to Oscar. I tried it on my own last week, and it was awful. I need that friendly face helping me out, so thank you so much. Next week, folks, we'll put the eye on you, Muskegon.
Oh, don't you love me sometime? Whoa.
This is Mike McCready, Pearl Jam's lead guitarist. For the last 24 years, I've been living with Crohn's disease, a chronic and often painful digestive disease. Luckily, I have my disease under control. But so many of the 1.4 million Americans living with Crohn's and a similar disease called ulcerative colitis live day to day not knowing when their disease will strike next. You can help by joining one of the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation's 130 Take Steps walks. Sign up today at cctakesteps.org. Take a step, register today.
24,000 children die every day from preventable causes. My name is Lawrence Fishburne, and I believe that number should be zero. Believe in zero.
Join the effort. Visit UNICEFUSA.org.
The Talk of Muskegon is News Talk 1090, WKBZ Muskegon, and heard 24 hours a day on WOOD HD2 Muskegon.
Like Armando de la Rosa, ready to help. Paralyzed